Hey pal, and welcome to season 3 of I've Got Your Back, the podcast. This season is all about well-being. I am so passionate about my own well-being, and I'm so passionate about sharing all of the tools that I've learned over the years that really can improve your overall well-being. So there'll be 8 different themes and 8 different areas of well-being that we'll cover off. I really hope you enjoy it, and let me know your feedback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 3 of I've Got Your Back, the podcast. And this is episode 2 of season 3, which is all about well-being. So in the first episode, I spoke a lot about the 8 different areas that I see make up well-being. And one of the things I spoke about was your emotional well-being. And I feel as if I really wanted to invite this guest on, so you'll get to meet him very shortly. I wanted to invite this guest on because I feel as if what Mark has to say, so Mark Purser is on, I feel as if what Mark has to say definitely, and what his experience is, definitely helps with a lot of the emotional well-being stuff that I talk about. So Mark Purser is here. Hi, Mark.
Hi. Hey, Michelle. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I just thought I'd share, before I get into the questions, I wanted to share how we actually met. So Mark, when I lived in Byron Bay, which seems a very long distant memory.
Wasn't that long ago. But
it
sure.
wasn't that long ago.
A lot has happened since.
A lot has happened since. So I think I moved to Byron in June 21, and I ended up in this beautiful little street. It was like 5-minute walk to the beach. It was like right in the heart of Byron Bay. And a good friend of mine, Chris, actually recommended that I should go and check out the local yoga studio at the end of my street, literally like a couple of steps away. And I went, well, I can't not go because it's literally a couple of steps away. And he recommended that I do like some sort of breath work and meditation. Anyway, I thought, well, I'll just look it up and I'll go to a yoga class. And I went to one of Mark's classes. I think it was actually one of your other teachers. And I just loved the studio, which Mark can tell you all about, in the heart of Byron Bay. And I just was like, yeah, this is my vibe. And so, and it just so happened that there was a teacher training course on in a few months. And I signed up for that. And honestly, it was one of those experiences sort of at the end of 2021 when the world was still a bit spicy, let's say, just being cocooned in this amazing studio, in this amazing community, doing breath work and meditation teacher training was one of the most impactful moments of my life. And as you'll know, most of you, like, I'm a big advocate of Yoga Nidra now. I do highly, highly recommend that for so many people. And actually there's a free download that you can have after this podcast. But it really was a profound time, and Mark was sort of the central point of that time for me, and just being an amazing teacher, full of wisdom, full of fun actually. And I love the fact that he goes down little rabbit holes. So I remember in the teacher training, like every day be like, where's he going with this? And I'd be like, we don't know. I love this. I love rabbit holes. I love rabbit holes. Yeah. So, you know, and I just feel Mark has got a lot to share and a lot of value because of his experience of becoming a yogi. But also just the things that he teaches and advocates for, I really believe would be good for you listening. So Mark, hello. That was a bit of a long introduction, but I just wanted to give people context as to how we know each other.
Context is good. Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
It's lovely to be here. Lovely to see you and to connect in this space. And just, you've got me reflecting back to that time, which was such an interesting time, as you say, a spicy time, for the end of the spicy cough. And we were running. I think that was the first training, and it was where we were was sort of opening and closing, basically lockdown, no lockdown. And we managed to just somehow dance around these revolving lockdowns and ran that training, and there were some people joining online, and it was such a powerful time. And one of the things that I was really passionate, it was very as you probably recall, it was quite an angst time. There was a lot of division in the community around vaccination and, the government restrictions, et cetera, and one of the things that we really advocated for was not to talk about it. It was actually, hey, let's just come here and focus on the conversation, which is we're here to practice meditation, we're here to practice breath work, and we're here to practice our beloved yoga nidra, which I'm glad to hear. I've made you a devotee. That's my my passion. Definitely. For the world, creating a yoga nidra cult.
Yes.
And it just spreads. It's an easy one to sell. But if we had this, and it was because everyone else was so angst, and we had this time where we all just dropped so deeply, and that particular training, certainly for me, and I think for everyone who was in that training, had an incredible journey, which was quite contrasted to a lot of other people out there in the world who were really struggling. But I felt, and I do continue to feel that when the world is so anxious for whatever reason, and there's lots of reasons people find to be anxious, it's so important that some people must lean into these practices more and more and focus on well-being, because anxiety gets really boring, and there has to be a counterpose, and it is an anxious world. I experience anxiety. I mean, that's the reason I got into the practices in the first place. But as the world becomes more anxious, we need to run in the other direction. Run towards yoga nidra more and more.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you shared it more about that time, and I really do remember that. I remember it was just, there was a lot of anxiousness, there was a lot of people, division. And so, really grateful for you for making that happen, because it would be easy for you not to have done that course, because there was so many, will we be in the studio? Will we not? Will we do it online? And I remember saying to you, I don't really want to do anything else online. I just want to be in person. I just want to be in a studio. I want to have that human connection. And you were like, right, okay, well, I think it'll be okay. So, we'll just need to go with it. And you really created that, all this divisions going on in the world, but we don't need to do that in here, which is so powerful. And I think that's what we all need. Important. And actually one of the reasons, one of the reasons why I created this podcast, and I've got your back, was I believe that the more we have each other's back and we don't have that division, and we really listen to everyone, that everyone has a voice, and everyone has their unique point of view, and everyone has diverse ideas, and it's about embracing that. And so one of the main reasons why I created this was to have conversations about stuff. You might be listening going, I don't agree with this, or challenged by that, or you're triggered by that. But actually just the fact that you're listening and being open and not creating this divide, I think is really important. So thanks for reminding me about that time.
Like creating spaces where it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to have contrasting opinions. There's so much polarization in the world, and I think at the heart of yoga and meditation practice is this. Well, it's very clearly defined as in the path of called non-dual tantra. It's all one. We are. I am you, and you are me, and this being one of the things that we're really big on exploring within this work is loosening our attachments to our opinions about things. People are punished by their opinions about things. Like I believe in this, whatever it is, a political cause or a social cause or an identity. I believe in it so much, I'm prepared to alienate so many other people, because I'm defined by this idea of who I think I am or what I believe in. And it's what we learn through practice is it's a really healthy thing to wear those opinions lightly. Wear it like a set of clothing, because they do change, over the course of a lifetime. And it is good to have things that we're passionate about and certain causes. It's not about not caring. We need to care. We should care. And there's certain things that we really need to care a lot about. But again, loosening our attachments to even the most important of things. Don't let that define who we are.
Thanks, Mark. So for those of you that don't know you, some listening will know you, but can you just share a bit about your background? How did you come to this being of a yogi? You know, I know you love that
To
term,
this
like,
podcast, being of
yeah.
a yogi.
Yeah. How did you get here? What happened?
Okay. Well, I think I mentioned anxiety before. As like most people along this pathway, I came because of a need, and I was, in short summary, a fairly rambunctious teenager, would fairly easily have fitted into the diagnoses of ADD. I was a really wild boy, and I had a lot of fun as a teenager, and I was an 80s kid. I wasn't inside a lot. I was running around on a BMX bike and just causing, all sorts of havoc. But I was having fun and trouble. Yeah. It's one of my friend's mothers, nicknamed me. He calls him the cat. So he always lands on his feet, but all his friends seem to get into trouble. And I'm like I very rarely got into trouble, which was amazing. I just didn't get caught for things. I just moved really quickly. Like that was my theory in life. I just kept moving. And that works for a while. And I got into a career just outside of school. I did a traineeship in a big newspaper company, a big media company. And then I ended up going to university and doing a degree in digital media communications and writing. So I studied philosophy. I got really into studying philosophy during that degree. And that was sort of my first tap into philosophy. And by studying more Western philosophy. It's funny, I went to a Jesuit Catholic school, and I had a Jesuit priest who was the headmaster of that school, St. Aloysius in Sydney, and he was, his name was Father Anthony Smith, and those Jesuits, I mean, they're bastards, a lot of them, but they're quite learned scholars, and he introduced us to Buddhism and Hinduism, and I was like, wow. Cool. I found it really, really interesting. That was as a teenager. And then I sort of went through my university degree. Yoga came in actually when I was in the newspapers. I was working with a couple of ladies who were, I was like 22 or something, and these ladies were somewhere in their 40s, probably about my age now, and they I was really into surfing. And I wanted to improve my ability to surf. I wasn't very good at surfing. I just really liked it. And I wanted to get better at it. And so they recommended yoga. And I think I'd read in a book somewhere that yoga is good for surfing. And so that kind of got me onto the yoga asana path.
Just describe asana, because some people listening don't know these terms. So just,
So yoga asana literally means posture, or actually means seat. But what we're talking about is yoga postures. So, practicing hatha yoga, the physical element of yoga. So I got right into that. I was very into my body. I played a lot of rugby, and I was really into surfing, and I wanted to be super fit. But at the same time, I used to party like a wild man. So it was that, my lifestyle for a long period of time was, play hard, live hard, and it's somewhere, but I would exercise a lot, and I managed to hold that together. But it was like burning the candle at both ends, and sooner or later that ran out of steam. And I came, sort of jumping pretty much a decade to my early 30s. I had been in a serious relationship. And that relationship had fallen apart. And from that point, I ended up in a psychologist's office, and psychologist sort of chambers. Actually, she was counselling from the front room of her house, and I was at that point I'd moved to the Byron Shire, so living close to where I met you. And that lady, Radha Nicholson, was a clinical psych, and helped me to unpack a lot of my backstory. And I didn't really know. I'd always kept up with a yoga practice, but it hadn't really evolved much. I just sort of was very much focused on just maintaining physical ability. But at that point, I'd become quite anxious, quite depressed. I was drinking way too much. And, it just burning the candle at both ends. I was running out of wax. I was getting to that point. It was like, I actually need to, it's not working anymore. The way that my lifestyle is not working, and I don't have the answers. And Radha Nicholson, the psychologist, she, as I found out later, was she's quite a well-known meditation teacher. She teaches meditation in the insight meditation tradition, which teach Vipassana from the Buddhist lineage. And so that got me into my first experience of meditation. I did a couple of Vipassana sits, and then shortly after that, I ended up finding Satchitananda Yoga, which was another branch of yoga. They had a couple of ashrams in Australia, and one of which is actually no longer operating. I spent a lot of time there, ended up, over the next few years doing a teacher training program. And that's sort of classical yoga based on Raj Yoga, and that's where the Yoga Nidra comes from. So Swami Satchitananda, who started that lineage, is one of sort of the modern creators of Yoga Nidra, but bringing together breath work, bringing together the Yoga Nidra, classical meditation, also the Yoga Asana bit, which was really important for me, like that physical element, and the Kundalini Kriya Yoga as well. Plus just being in an ashram and being removed from the world for a period of time, which I really needed, was an incredibly powerful time. And so I did I had trained as a yoga teacher many, many years ago, but, very sort of light-hearted training at that point, and I certainly wasn't in the space where I was really ready to receive the full potential of the teachings. But then I did the Satchitananda Yoga teacher training over a few years, which was a really big course. And then shortly after that, and we're talking about 2016 now, so probably nearly 8 years ago, I came back to Byron, and I began Bamboo Yoga, which was the yoga studio where I met you.
Yeah. Amazing. What a story.
What a story. And it's still unfolding. The story still continues. I don't know where it ends up. So
Always.
we had COVID in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Whatever that was.
Exactly.
And a little speed hump. We all kind of look back over our shoulder and go, what was that little blank in life?
What was that?
What was that thing?
The little blink, that's amazing. And so can you just explain, because again, some people will or may not know this, like the different lineages of like learning yoga and meditation and breath work, because I didn't know this when I actually joined your course, that there's different lineages that sort of stem mainly out of India, right?
Yes, mainly out of India. Almost all out of India.
Yeah.
But in some way, shape or form. And although, it's propagated all over the world. So you've got, in the yoga tradition, you've got a few core lineages in sort of the more modern time. Yeah. And they've got Krishnamacharya is a very well-known teacher, the sort of teacher of teachers, who trained his disciples, students, B.K.S. Iyengar and Patabi Joyce are sort of the two key ones who brought a lot of, like, the modern vinyasa came out of Patabi Joyce and spun into this sort of vinyasa power yoga world. Swami Satchitananda was a student of Swami Shivananda, who had a whole bunch of other key students, Venkatesananda. There's a whole bunch of other students who and Shivananda yoga is still widely practiced around the world. So that Satchitananda was the propagator of Yoga Nidra, and absolute powerhouse, who again started in India, came to spend a lot of time in Australia, a lot of time in Europe. Different teachers went to, and this is, we're talking sort of the 60s, 70s, up into the 80s. A lot of these Indian teachers were disseminating yoga into the West. You've got, other, Bikram was another one who again came out of India and made us, gave us our kind of rock and roll hot yoga. And who else was there? Osho, more of a tantra teacher, very, very popular in the West. And there's a whole bunch of, but now the most of the Indian teachers, there's obviously still Indian teachers who are teaching in the West, but most of those lineage have retracted back to India. Certainly the Bihar School of Yoga is now teaching more just in India. As far as they're concerned, they did the job. They got the word out there. They spread yoga. They've given us what we need. And now you've got, Yoga Nidra is an interesting case study, because you've got this classical tantric practice the original practice is called Nyasa, which comes from a practice of bringing mantras into chakras to awaken. It's a Kundalini awakening practice where you're bringing mantras into chakras, but that has now spun into modern science. That has now spun into Andrew Huberman now calls it NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, which is, it's a beautiful practice. I rest, which is another one which has sort of been propagated in the West, again, focused very much on the therapeutic elements of the practice, whereas in the Indian tradition, it's about enlightenment, it's about enlightenment. So I think as practitioners, and certainly one thing I'm really passionate about teaching is that we maintain our reverence and our connection to lineage, because looking again at yoga nidra, NSDR is wonderful for people who experience anxiety and are looking for relaxation, but let's not forget the other elements of it, that it is a practice of enlightenment. The relaxation is almost a side effect. And the release from anxiety, but there's so much more on offer, and particularly when you practice it as it was designed to be, as sort of a network of practices, so bringing yoga nidra into a practice of pranayama, bringing them together, there's a lot more that's on offer. And I think that's why I'm still very passionate about teaching from the Indian lineage.
Yeah. And I remember that. I love that because I love history and I love philosophy and I love deep, deep wisdom. And, all of the stuff that you teach comes from practices that have been around for like 2000 years. It's just obviously, they, like you said, they did their job. They came out to the Western world to basically spread these Eastern practices, which, to be honest, I believe if we lived in a more Eastern mindset, I think the Western world would benefit a lot. But yeah, they sort of did their job. They came out and they spread the word. But these practices these philosophies have been around for 2000 years, which is
some of them. The tantric, there's certainly the core for even longer. Actually, if we're talking about the Vedantan period, you're going back to the Vedas. The Rig Veda is at least 2,500 years old. Some of these mantras, like the Gayatri mantra, have been continually chanted for, we don't know really. It was written down 2,500 years ago, but it was in use for long before that. And that's pretty cool. You're connecting to something that is ancient and powerful and has resonance. But then again, if we look at, modern neuroscience is beginning to, they're experimenting a lot with yoga nidra and modern breathwork techniques, and they're showing us how they work. And then we can, experiment more with subtle variations. It's a learning tradition. So just because it has an ancient root doesn't mean it can't change and adapt. And yoga has always changed and adapted. So it's wonderful that we can take these practices and spin them into something that is relevant for the world today. And it's just, certainly from my perspective, and, this is something that I'm keen on in my own practice, and also I'm really passionate about teaching to my students, is that don't lose that connection to lineage. It's easy to do. It's easy to do. And not just because it's respectful to acknowledge your sources, it's useful. It's actually, don't lose it, because there's, otherwise, what we often get is yoga light. You get this light-hearted version, which is just you're getting the surface level, and it's there's a lot more on offer if you're prepared to go deep.
Yeah, absolutely. And just touching upon that, obviously, you've spoke about the benefits that you've experienced about developing a practice around breath work and meditation and yoga, physical yoga as well. In your experience, because you've had the studio now, for 8 years? Longer? Is that longer?
8 years, yeah.
8 years.
8 years in Byron, yeah.
8 years in Byron. So from all the people that have come, because Byron is a bit of a place where you'll have your regulars, but then you have people that just come for holiday and fleeting, come in and out again, come from Sydney or Melbourne, and they come from that, coming here for a relaxation and total time out. And Byron definitely provides that. What have you observed with people in terms of their challenges coming in to the practice or coming into the studio, and what have you seen happen to them? Like, what are the challenges, but what are the benefits that you've observed?
Good question. Really good question. So I actually just put up a banner outside the studio, which says, come for your body and stay for your mind. And I think one of the things that I've been really passionate about, and look, it's reflective of my journey with yoga, is that I came to yoga because I wanted to be super fit. I wanted to be a really good surfer. I wanted to be good looking, you know, I wanted to have great abs. Yogis were hot, you know, but what I really was actually seeking, and even then I was craving it, is just steadiness. I actually, because I was aware there was a level of self-awareness that the way I was showing up in the world was not functional, and it wasn't pleasant, you know, this level of dislocation and anxiety that was fairly standard. You know, even though I was having a lot of fun, there was a, you know, a flip side to that. There was anxiety and there was depression, and that I knew that I needed to do something, and I loved the way I felt after I'd practiced. So, and then a refinement of that process. And so one of the challenges has been, this is a sort of a global challenge, that I'm not the only one doing it, but the perception of yoga is it is a physical practice. And my passion for practice and for teaching yoga is it's actually a practice of the evolution of the personality, what yoga is designed to do. And that really only happens when you bring in the elements of meditation, breath work, and yoga nidra, and that you have the capacity to evolve your mind. And it's not just evolving, you are evolving your brain, you're developing your neural pathways, we're rebalancing the nervous system, but we're, you know, aligning ourselves with our dharmic purpose, our higher purpose. And that, you know, just in my opinion, that is the factual, definitive purpose of yoga. And so trying to align people who are coming, they just want a bit of a stretch and relax, and that's okay. You know, coming to yoga for that is cool. Like, it's a great place to start. But for some, and for some people, it's just, they're just not buying it. Like, you walked in and you met me and you're like, I want this, you know, like I want what's on offer here. Like, and you were just ready to step into that. And that was easy, you know. It's like we've had this incredible journey over the few years since, where you just were so receptive and able to, you know, you were asking the right questions and you committed to the practice and you just took it all on. And then maybe it was actually better for you because you hadn't done all the yoga asana first. That kind of came in sideways. And it was, you came in really fresh, and you were like, but I mean, you'd done a lot of other work and you just prepared yourself, you were ready. And it was so in your, you know, and some people are in, and that's cool. You know, I'm there for those people, and for this other people who are going to, you know, who've been coming to my yoga classes for years or going to, and they're just like, yeah, no, I just wanted to stay as vinyasa, and that's cool too. You know, like if that's where it is for you, I'm not saying it's the only way. You know, there's many ways to the top of the mountain. Yoga is not the only way, and certainly yogic meditation is not the only way. But what I do want to do is for people who are keen to take that journey, I just want to make it accessible, essentially, make it accessible and available.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of people that listen to this, I'd say, are in the camp of, I'm curious about this, I'm listening, but where do I start? What do I do? And you sort of touched on it a little bit, because they might come in through the physical, let's go to a yoga class. Or it might be me that, you know, I'd done a couple of yoga classes, but I came in more wanting to learn the philosophy of the breath work and the meditation. So I sort of came in the other way. But for you, for anyone, you know, because people are listening all over, like there's people in the UK, there's people in Australia, there's people in different locations. Like, what would you recommend as a sort of first step if they're thinking, right, this sounds good to me, I'm curious, how do I lean in? What would be the step?
Do Michelle's yoga nidra.
Do Michelle's yoga nidra. That is definitely a good first step. Yeah.
It's a great first step. I mean, yoga nidra, I call it, it's the special sauce that makes the rest of yoga make sense. You know, that profound level of relaxation and getting to know that state of deep rest and beginning to acknowledge these deep-seated tensions that we don't even know that they're there. We carry so much tension in our body because our minds are so active all of the time, and we carry these deep-seated tensions in the what we call in yoga the body mind. So acknowledging, again, modern science is just catching up in this idea that we actually carry memory in the body through our microbiome and through the physical system, and that once you begin to see that tension begin to dissolve, you're like, oh, wow, something's happening. Something's happening, and that it will improve your capacity to function in the world. Yoga nidra is just a win-win-win-win. You're getting deep rest quickly, so you're catching up on. Many of us don't get enough sleep, so you're getting that quick reset, which we need. You are able to reprogram subconscious patterning using sankalpa. And again, just beginning to unravel that deep-seated psychic tension. That's a great place to start, you know, and for people who've struggled with meditation, which is pretty much everybody who's tried meditation, I've found Yoga Nidra, it makes other types of meditation work better. Yeah. I mean, for you, was that kind of the case?
Yeah, I must say, out of everything that I learned, because, we were learning for 3 months, right? So it was like over 200 hours of teacher training. And for me, I always like to come out of things and think, what's the one thing? What's the one thing, that I'm going to embed or embody or take forward? And for me, it was Yoga Nidra, because, and it's probably because of your love for it and your passion for it as well, that came through. But for me, when you were just like, Yoga Nidra. But I could easily see how anyone could do that practice, and it was accessible to everyone, because not everyone feels comfortable going into a yoga class, or even like some breathwork practices. Now I've explored lots of different ones, and I've been in more sort of group events. Like even breathwork can be quite challenging, like to set up, to get, on the back, and, even breath work can be hard work, and I think obviously there's absolute benefits to it, but it's just Yoga Nidra to me was like, if I'm going to teach this, and that's something I want to teach and advocate for, because I see people not getting enough sleep. I see people struggling and very, very anxious, or just like operating in that fight or flight mode all the time, running around and also this guilt and shame, especially with women, around having a nap or having rest. And I'm like, have the rest, like have a rest, like just. And I just think my experience of it in the teacher training was, and I remember everyone else, as soon as you said, okay, Yoga Nidra, everybody was like, there was this pure excitement and joy as soon as you said, because I think we did it pretty much every day. You were just like, right, time for Yoga Nidra. And everyone was like, yes, like, this is so good. Yeah. And I think just observing that reaction, and then having my own experience, and then seeing the world, I'm like, everyone needs to develop this. Everyone needs this. And that's why it's actually the recording I did for the teacher training. I just have made that available to everyone, because I think it's accessible, and I think it gives you the most benefits really quickly. Yeah.
And look, there's a lot of science to back that up. We had one of the teachers, Dr. Oscar Serelak, who he actually did the course with me last year. He was a very experienced sort of functional medical doctor who'd worked a lot with Yoga Nidra previously, and did a huge amount of research into looking at, he's constantly got his radar out all across holistic therapies. He's looking at everything, and he's here that he actually now specializes in postpartum care, so women who've just had children, and the postnatal depletion, where sort of women get really run down after having children. So that's sort of his area of medical specialty. But he talks about Yoga Nidra as being sort of pound for pound the best return on investment for any holistic health practice that you can do. Puts it up against every breathwork, meditation, supplementation, therapy, whatever it is. Yoga Nidra, if you're going to dedicate 20 minutes, half an hour once per day, you're going to get on, mentally, physiologically, and spiritually, really, you're going to get more results. So that's, look, the reason I taught it during the course was it's been very clearly shown that if you perform Yoga Nidra within a short period of time after a learning activity, so if you've been studying something, taking in new information, if you perform Yoga Nidra shortly after that, it increases your neuroplasticity by over 50%. So basically that's your brain rewiring, creating new neural pathways, which is basically improving your capacity to absorb the information and then to be able to recall the information.
Yeah.
It should be absolutely taught as a core part of the education system. Again, there's more and more evidence, really good quality evidence. So good quality studies are being done to show how it's working and the fact that it does work, and in different applications how they work. So I think more and more we'll see. Someone told me the other day that it was a really significant percentage, I can't remember exactly what, of current psychological studies that are being done by a friend of mine, Simon Dubois, who you probably met. He lectured on the course. He's a psychologist, and we work together. And he was saying that within current research that's being done into psychology, it's a huge amount. So well over 50% is based around meditation. And by that I mean breath work, yoga nidra. So things rather than supplementation or taking medication, etc. Where that's where the research has currently always come from big pharma, God help us. So that's with more that. There's a little tidal wave of awareness coming from the scientific community about, hey, this stuff really works and it's accessible and it's free. You can access yoga nidra for free. I have half a dozen tracks available for free. Michelle's got tracks available for free. If you get bored of listening to us, there's other people. So we're so passionate about it that we're not really into monetizing. I just want to see it out there. I just really need, because it is the counterpose that the world needs.
I love that. It's a counterpose the world needs. And you run a Wednesday class, don't you, in Byron for yoga nidra?
I do. I do a community class. And I haven't been actually, because I've been away a lot over the last couple of months, but I'm just sort of getting back into a rhythm now. We'll do that online. I don't know, that'll be for the UK. That's pretty early. I know it works well for people in the States. It's kind of on the western coast of the South. I also do run a training. We're running the training that you did. We're actually now going, the next round of the training starts in September, and it's going to be fully online. So
amazing.
Previously, because after COVID, I was like, you remember saying, I don't want to do anything online either. I've had so much time staring into it, hanging out in the Zoom room. I just want to do something with a group of people in a room. But we've had a sort of build up of people who are in various different parts of the world who want to do it online. And it actually works really well online. Practicing this stuff, it actually does work well online.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, that's great. So that's out in September. Highly recommend it. Anyone listening, loved it. And I love just to sort of wrap that whole yoga nidra thing up as well, conversation. I love this. The more studies, we'll see if we can get, I'm pretty sure you included that in the course, but maybe I'll get the links or anything. We can put it in the show notes for the podcast. And because, I think having those studies and seeing what's coming out from doctors and psychologists and people just to really back up this work is really powerful. I'm a big fan of data. I think it's important that we have that,
Yeah, I do too. I'm not a scientist. I'm an educator, but it's really, and look, I love the science because it just proves me right. When I was studying through the such an under lineage, most of my teachers were scientists. So when I say that, one of my core teachers was a psychiatrist. I had another one who was a neurophysiologist, a couple of medical doctors. And so that lineage has always attracted scientists, but the level and the quality of research that's coming out now, it's just like, wow. Andrew Huberman, many people know, he sort of really spearheaded a lot of it, and he's just hugely popular on YouTube and whatever else.
Yes, Andrew Huberman. I follow him as well. He's got really good content.
He's amazing, and actually one of the best things on yoga nidra is which he sort of rebranded a little bit as NSDR is from him. So I can give you a couple of links to a few of his videos, which give a really nice synopsis and explanation of how it works.
Yeah, great. That'd be amazing. Yeah, and we'll include those in the notes. I never put this in the questions, but I feel as if I need to ask you this because, this episode is sort of themed around emotional well-being. And obviously what we've been talking about helps with that, and even beyond emotional, spiritual and different things. I wanted to ask you about drinking and alcohol, because I know that we have this sort of shared story and passion wouldn't even say it's a passion, but this way of life where we don't drink.
Passion for not drinking.
Yeah, passion for not, that should be a thing. But we have this, we're on the same page around alcohol and drinking. And I was just curious if you would be able to just share your story and a little bit about that in terms of the benefits that you've experienced. I just thought that would be good to touch upon.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's,
especially because you spoke about your party life, you spoke about that sort of transition.
My passion has always been for life.
Yeah.
My passion has been for living. And that's what got me into drinking and partying. I wanted to know what everything was. I needed, and I went to amazing parties and I had a wonderful time. Alcohol opened doors and took me into worlds that I wouldn't have stepped into. And I had a lot of deep-seated anxiety and tension coming out of my childhood, which I carried into my teenage years, and alcohol helped that to disappear. And it worked wonderfully for a period of time until it didn't work. And then what happened was my world stopped getting bigger. And in fact, my world started to contract until, the final days of my drinking, my world got really small. I was really lonely. I was really sad. Alcohol made me really sad. And so my passion is still for living. And now I haven't had any alcohol for over 12 years.
Wow.
And the reason for that is, I can't drink successfully. I tried to manage drinking and did all the things that people do. And it just came to a point was, one drink's just too many, a thousand's not enough, as they say. I was supported in that journey. I explored and continue to explore and get support from 12-Step Fellowship. I think that's amazing through AA or whatever people do. It's incredibly, very yogic in their philosophy. If you look at the it's that connection to higher power, that connection to divinity, and that is the core of the yoga tradition. And so I was always into yoga before I stopped drinking, and I think yoga helped me to get to a point where I realized that drinking wasn't sustainable for me, and it had certainly supported me on that journey. And yoga nidra, again, through those early years particularly, it came into when I'd stopped drinking yoga nidra, that's sort of when I found yoga nidra for the first time. And it helped to totally reformat my DNA, totally reformat my whole psyche of who I thought I was and how I managed tension and how I managed anxiety. It gave me the capacity to manage anxiety. So, my passion is for living, and my passion is now for the fullness of living, sober living. I don't really think about drinking so much. It's there, it's alcohol. Alcohol's a thing in our world, but it's not as though I hate alcohol. I just love being clear. I love being fully present, and alcohol doesn't fit with the way I want to live my life. And so it's a question. I think the things that we explore a lot of this in Sankalpa through our practice of it. It's about choosing hard what you really want. So I've chosen a way of being. I've chosen a lifestyle. I've chosen my dharma, which is ultimately it's about living in a certain way, about doing certain things. But I choose that so much that anything that doesn't fit into that, which essentially is alcohol and that type of partying. I still love to party. I still love to be social, and I still love to get out there and get amongst it. I have so much fun. I can't keep up with myself. But one of the things that I think, Michelle, that we should advocate, and you advocate beautifully, is that you can have for me, it's been a much bigger, more enjoyable life since stopping drinking.
Definitely. 100%. I definitely have more fun now than what I did back then. It's just, and it's not even a thought anymore for me. It's just like, this is the way it is. It's just, this is life. I love how you said you have a passion for life. Like I was like that because I was very similar to you growing up. I was like, I want to be in the bars. I want to be drinking. I want to meet everyone. I want to know everyone and everything. It's that passion for life, but we think it comes through alcohol, but actually it comes through us just being curious and going out there. Like we actually don't need it to have that passion for life. But I love how you said it's a bit about being passionate for life. And I think not having alcohol brings that passion more. it's just a whole other level that I didn't really know up until 7 years ago.
Yeah, but you're going to have something else if you're going to not drink successfully in this world. I mean, even I think for people who haven't had alcohol problems, that it's challenging. It's alcohol it's used widely as the medication to help people manage their anxiety. So that's where, I mean, for me, like I think people who I've seen do well and not drink and be really happy about it, they have some practice of being able to regulate their nervous system. So whether that's breath work or meditation or yoga nidra or some combination of those things, I think it's going to be I mean, I don't like to say fundamental, but let's say fundamental in this case. It's if you are looking for a happy sober life, then you need to find something that's better than alcohol.
Yeah, true. Actually, and see, when I think back, that's at that time, that's when I found yoga or meditation or breathwork. That's when I started to explore. So actually, you just made me realize that was probably around about the same time I started to practice of some sort, going to a class. I never before that was like, I'm going to go to a yoga class, So that's interesting.
There's the M. Scott Peck talks about in the book, The Road Less Traveled, that, alcohol is, the spirit, that it connects us to spirit. And I think that's what it can do for a lot of people to begin with. It gives you a little insight into the beyond the limitations. It slows down our active mind enough that we can see perhaps a little bit beyond the limitations of our personal mind. But it's a very temporary experience, but it gives us a taste. So we want more. And we keep going back to the bottle looking for it, or going into other drugs, other substances to help us get there. And what yoga can give us, yoga practice. When I say yoga, I'm talking about meditation, breath work, yoga nidra, all the things wrapped up in there. It can give us that can give us that experience of connection to spirit, which I believe is the core human desire, is to know the innate, to know what is real and true, to know God, whatever that looks like. And yoga gives us a sustainable pathway to get there. Yeah. Without the hangovers.
Without great, amazing.
Terrible hangovers. I never regretted I never woke up on a Sunday morning and go, I wish I was hungover right now. That's never happened.
Never, ever, ever. Absolutely. Well, Mark, thank you so much. If you get we're just going to wrap up now, but if you get anything you feel you would like to share as we wrap up.
I'd just like to give big props to you, Michelle, firstly, just to say I'm a fan. I think you resonate such a positive, intelligent message, which it's timely. Very sad to see you leave the Byron Shire. But hey, isn't it cool that we're talking from one side of the world to the other?
Exactly.
It's amazing. I don't feel like we're very far away. So,
no. Thank you so much.
And big props to you for the amazing work that you're doing. It's as a teacher, it is just such a wonderful thing to teach people who are paying it forward, and people who are good. Like I teach, I've taught hundreds and hundreds of people, but every now and then I'm going to blow some smoke up your butt. That you get people that say, oh wow, you're such a great communicator, and to see the way that you took the practices on and that you carry it forward with such capacity, that's heartening for me. So thank you for that. And to all the people out there, be brave, get out there. Life is for the living. Life is for the living. I hope if Michelle and I can carry a core message between us, get out there and live your life. Don't let those things get in the way. There are wonderful, enjoyable tools available that can help us to overcome.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember, download the Yoga Nidra right after this episode. Make sure you have a listen. It's the most beautiful guided meditation that will regenerate your mind, your body, and your soul. Take care. See you soon.